All right. Well, let's get this show on the road. My name is Pete Stahl, and I'm with the League of Women Voters of the Los Altos Mountain View area, as you can see above me. And this is our pros and cons for the 2025 November special election. So let's share my screen and we'll start the slide deck. Diddy. Awesome. And layout. There I am down in the corner. Great. Here's the title slide. I do want to mention that this slide deck was put together as a collaboration between our league from Los Altos Mountain View, the Cupertino Sunnyvale League, and the Southwest Santa Clara County League. And the other league members from across Santa Clara County are a joy to work with and have really been very helpful. And I've really enjoyed the opportunity to collaborate with them. So, what is League of Women Voters? We'll start with a little bit of basics. League of Women Voters was founded 105 years ago in 1920, and there are two separate roles. First is voter service and public education, and that's the branch of League that you're listening to tonight. I'm working for voter service here. And there's also an action and advocacy branch and they lobby in Sacramento and Washington and occasionally at the local level for good government bills and, of course, to empower voters. The league is nonpartisan and it's for women and men. And our mission is to encourage informed and active participation in the government. We never support or oppose a political party or a candidate. The action and advocacy branch will occasionally take positions on ballot propositions or other legislation, but political parties and candidates are outside of our purview. The special election that's coming up in a few weeks, most of you, I expect, have already received both your sample ballots and your actual ballots. And in our area, there are three items on this special election ballot. There's an election to complete the term of the current county assessor who has submitted his resignation. And then there's a county measure and a state measure. Um, in case you are worried that you might not be able to vote, let me give you a few elements that might reassure you. First, you can still register to vote until October 20th. That's next week. Uh, in most cases, if you have already registered, your ballot has been mailed to you. Um, you can return it by mail, drop box, or vote center anytime until Election Day, which is Tuesday, November 4th. Um, there is a very good website by the Santa Clara County Registrar of Voters and you can go there to check your registration, track your ballot, see the results of the election on election day and the days following, and much more. It's a great website. It's sccvote.org. Let me warn you now, do not go to sccvote.com. sccvote.com belongs to one of the political parties, and you'll find yourself in a partisan website as opposed to this county service. So make sure it's sccvote.org. And then at the state level, there is a facility where you can track your ballot and see whether it's been accepted and counted if you've got any questions about that. And that's where'smyballot.sos, which stands for Secretary of State, .ca.gov. Once you get your ballot, you fill it out as normal, and you've got three different ways to return it. First, you can seal it in the blue envelope that comes with the ballot and pop it in the mail. No postage is necessary. When you do this, before you mail it, be super double extra sure that you have signed the back of the envelope there is a slot there, a blank space for you to fill in your signature. You've also got to write in your street address. That's extremely important. Uh, you can do the same thing, except instead of popping it into a mailbox, you can pop it into a ballot drop box, and those are located all over the county at schools, at libraries, at city halls. Um, and you can also go to a vote center. Vote centers are wonderful places. You can even register and vote all on the same day. The vote centers are open starting in about a week and a half, and the final week leading up to the election, they're open every day. Where are the vote centers? Well, there are too many for me to name here, but if you go to sccvote.org or download the SCC Vote app on your mobile device, you can easily find a nearby vote center. I do know that one of the vote centers in Mountain View is at the Church of Scientology um, up in the northern part of the city near Shoreline and 101. But there are quite a few others. So I'll quickly go over the assessor contest. I can say that the Santa Clara County held a debate among the assessor candidates, and you can view that online. There's a link to it from the League of Women Voters site for my chapter and also Santa Clara County. What does an assessor do? The assessor identifies taxable property and assesses it or determines its fair value according to the law and applies various exemptions as appropriate. And how much money are we talking about here? Well, property taxes raise $7.8 billion a year in our county, and that's distributed among schools, the county, city, community colleges, special districts, and others. Here are the four candidates. Um, and as I said, I'd like to refer you to their debate to tell you about them. I've got nothing to say here, except that another great way to find out about them is at a league-run website called vote411.org. It replaces the Voters Edge website. So Vote 411. And here's what the homepage looks like. And if you're interested in the candidates for assessor, you punch the Find What's on Your Ballot button there on the right. And then it will take you to a place where you fill in your address. It'll show you what's on your ballot. And then you can dig into the assessor's race. Here's the main page for that. And it is just a deep well of information about each one of the candidates. Here's one. It gives you general information, the URLs of the website and Facebook, and then the answers that the candidates gave to a number of questions. What are your top priorities, for example? And you can compare the responses of the candidates and make your choice. Once again, it's vote411.org. And for those of you who are not relics of the 20th century, like I am, 411 used to be the line that you could call for information, specifically telephone numbers. So vote 411 means voting information. There, I've done my service to the younger generation. Um, so let's dive into the pros and cons of the two ballot questions that you're going to be asked on this ballot. The pros and cons are unbiased, nonpartisan explanations. I will give you the situation, I will give you the issues, some arguments for and against. Today we've got time. I can show you the names of some of the supporters and people opposing each measure and a little taste of who's funding the campaigns for and against each. Um, Once again, the league has not taken a position on, or rather, The league may have taken a position, but I'm not here to advocate for or against either one of these. But instead, I want to give you the information that will enable you to make your own informed decision. Propositions and measures. What's the difference? Well, a proposition comes from the state, and it will propose a new law for the entire state. There are either legislative propositions, that's bullet number one there, that are voted on by that passed with a majority of the state legislature, or two-thirds if it would change the Constitution. And number two is if citizens, just ordinary people like you and I, you and me, you and I, collect enough signatures on petitions, and it's in the millions, I believe, at this point, um, then that gets put on the ballot as an initiative. The one statewide proposition on this ballot is a state constitutional amendment. So it originated in the state legislature and it passed both houses with a two-thirds vote. Now, a measure is local. It's from a county, city, town, school district, or some other special district. Some of those need a simple majority. Some require 55%. Some require two-thirds. Measure A, which is on this ballot, requires just a simple majority. And I'll get into why that is in a minute. So once you're equipped with all the information that I'm about to give you, what are you supposed to do with it? How do you use that to decide? Well, we've got a number of hints. First, look at what the measure seeks to accomplish. Do you agree with the goals? If yes, then consider voting yes. And if no, obviously consider voting no. Next, examine how the measure would achieve its goal. Do you agree with those methods? Let's say you're interested in making traffic better and reducing traffic jams. That might be a goal that you agree with. Maybe the method that's proposed in a ballot measure is to widen all the freeways to 15 lanes in each direction. That might be a case where you love the goal, but you disagree with the methods. So at that point, you might consider voting against the measure. Does the measure create a new government program without funding it? In other words, does it have to pull funding from other programs, or does it create its own revenue source? That's certainly a consideration because these programs don't exist in a vacuum. If the state or the county takes on a new funding obligation, either they've got to find new money somewhere or they have to reduce the allocations to everything else that they fund. Does the measure deal with one issue, or is it complex and should it be handled in the legislature? Some voters like to vote no if they believe that the legislature ought to handle it. But by the same token, there are uh, there are limitations on what the legislature or board of supervisors can do by themselves. In the case of both Proposition 50 and Measure A, these governing bodies are required to get the approval of the voters before what they've enacted can go into law. At the state level, this was because Proposition 50 is a constitutional amendment, and constitutional amendments must be approved by the voters. And at the county level, it's because it's an increased tax, which requires a vote of the public. Ask who benefits from the measure and who might be harmed. That frequently will determine the vote of a lot of voters. And finally, be wary of distortion tactics used in advertisements, ads. Find out who the real sponsors and opponents are of the measure. Sometimes they hide or try to give misleading arguments. So be careful of those. So here are some resources that you can use beyond today's talk and beyond Vote 411, which I've already talked about. The League of Women Voters Education Fund at cavotes.org has a wealth of information and pointers to details. Ballotpedia is an independent Wikipedia-style election website that also contains an enormous amount of helpful information. This link here to the voter guide at secretaryofstate.california.gov is, see, I've got it sitting right here. Oop, there we go. It's the gray ballot pamphlet, excuse me, ballot pamphlet that you got in the mail. So that's available online. And the cool thing about online is it's available in, I think, 7 different languages, possibly more. Power Search Campaign Finance will give you the very latest information on who has made contributions, both directly to campaigns and also non-affiliated campaign donation or non-affiliated donations intended to swing the election. The information in this in this presentation that you're going to hear is from October 5th. There I'm sure are updates and a lot more interesting contributions. And finally, the Legislative Analyst's Office. Those are some of the best writers I've ever seen. They write the information that goes into this guide, and they've also got deeper analyses of things like the backing legislation. Proposition 50 refers to an assembly bill, and that you can find at the Legislative Analyst's Office. And finally, here are the 2 measures that are on the ballot. Measure A is local Santa Clara County only, and it would bump up our county sales tax level for 5 years, so that's temporary. Proposition 50 would change the congressional district maps, also temporary. It would last only until the year 2030. So let's dive in. Measure A. It's general retail transactions or sales tax of 5/8 of 1 cent, and it would be for 5 years only. At the end of the 5 years, it would expire, and the voters would have to approve it again if they wanted to renew it. And this was placed on the ballot by the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors, and only a simple majority is needed to pass. So the question with Measure A is, should the county adopt a 5/8 cent, that's 0.625% general sales tax for 5 years? The estimate from the county is it will provide $330 million a year. And the intention of the Board of Supervisors, their announced intention, is to support critical local services and reduce the risk of hospital closures at Santa Clara Valley Healthcare. And I'm going to give you some background on what exactly is going on with that and why this support might be needed. So here's the background. Uh, the total Santa Clara County budget is $13.7 billion, of which approximately a third, $4.5 billion, supports health services through 4 county hospitals and over 15 clinics. In order to raise that $4.5 billion, the county has been receiving more than $2.3 billion a year from the federal government for Medicaid programs. Earlier this year, in July, there was a large bill that passed the US Congress and was signed by President Trump. Its number is House Resolution 1. You might have heard it referred to as the Big Beautiful Bill or the One Big Beautiful Bill. And one of the many impacts of that bill was to cut more than $1 billion in annual funding for Medicaid and food assistance programs in our county, and similar cuts in other counties as well. Um, the current countywide sales tax rate is 9 1/8%. Uh, and of that, most goes to the state. The county is currently collecting just 1/8 of a cent, and then 1 3/4 cents goes to transportation agencies that are independent and not controlled by the county. So Measure A would bump the county's portion of the sales tax up from 1/8 of a percent to 6/8 or 3/4 of a percent. If I've done my math right, you can get out your calculators and check that. So what will Measure A do? It'll authorize 5/8% increase for 5 years. That'll be next year through 2031. The increase, as I said earlier, will generate about $1/3 billion per year, and that will go to the county's general fund. Measure A will follow existing state sales tax laws, so it will be identical to the current sales tax. It'll just be a higher amount. And it will require annual public reporting on expenditures and independent oversight and audits. So let me go back up to the second bullet here. It says that the money will go to the county's general fund. The county's general fund is allocated every year in the budget that gets passed by the Board of Supervisors. And there is nothing in Measure A that requires the Board of Supervisors to spend this increased revenue on healthcare or uh, uh, nutrition, food assistance. The Board of Supervisors has announced its intention to do that. And the reason given that the Measure A specifies the general fund instead of a special dedicated fund is that due to the famous Proposition 13 from 1978, if a locality, such as a county, enacts a tax for special purposes, a special tax, then it requires a 2/3 majority of the electorate, 2/3 vote of the voters in order to be approved. Whereas a general tax, like the one that's proposed in Measure A, requires only a simple majority. So the Board of Supervisors in Measure A is asking us to trust them to follow through on their promise to dedicate this new revenue to healthcare. And it's up to you, the voters, whether to go with them on that. The cost to the county to implement Measure A is negligible because the county is already collecting a sales tax. So this is just simply an increase in what they're already doing. There are public figures who are supporters and opponents, and these are primarily people who have signed the ballot arguments that you would find in your county ballot, which looks like this. So the top supporters are a member of Save Our Local Hospitals, which is a campaign. And there are a number of medical practitioners and the director of public health, or the retired director of public health, and the president of the Board of Supervisors. People opposing Measure A, and I will tell you in a minute why they oppose it, include a former council member of Saratoga, the mayor of Cupertino, and former mayors of Monte Sereno and Palo Alto. So let's talk about the arguments for and against. Supporters say that with a $1 billion shortfall, hospitals may be forced to shut down and other critical county services will be slashed. And by the way, note the asterisks above both boxes. These are arguments made by advocacy groups. I cannot vouch for their truth or accuracy, but these are reasons that supporters and opponents give for you to consider supporting or opposing it yourself. So you might vote for Measure A if you agree that Measure A will protect life-saving treatment for everyone in Santa Clara County. If you agree that it's part of a balanced solution, combining spending cuts and a temporary tax increase, that the revenue is collected in the county and stays in the county, unlike, say, the state income tax, and that Measure A includes strict oversight and independent audits to make sure that the increased sales tax is spent properly. People who would like you to vote no on Measure A point out that the sales tax is a regressive tax that hits low and middle income families the hardest. Let me pause for a second and say what regressive tax means. A progressive tax, such as the federal income tax, means that the more money you earn, the higher your incremental tax rate is. So you pay more income tax on your second $100,000 than you did on your first $100,000. Uh, the sales tax, however, doesn't care how much you've spent. It continues to charge you the same amount. And so for people who spend a small amount or earn a small amount, it's a larger portion of their spendable income. And that's the origin of this argument. You might also oppose Measure A if you agree that it'll make Santa Clara County one of the highest taxed counties in California. Uh, if you believe that $330 million a year isn't enough, that Measure A doesn't go far enough, you might consider opposing it. Uh, if you believe that Measure A, as a general tax, is not guaranteed to be spent on healthcare, and you're afraid that it might not be, and you also might vote against Measure A uh, if you agree that temporary taxes, as Measure A proposes, tend to be extended long after their original promises. So instead of a temporary 5-year tax, what we're really signing up for is a much longer term, even though it will have to be approved by voters again at the end of 5 years. The argument here is that once it's in place, it's much easier to get it extended. The people funding the campaign in favor as of October 5th had collected a little over $2 million, much of it from the Valley Health Foundation, the SEIU, Local 521, a couple of additional advocacy groups, and John Sobrato, whose name might be familiar to you from the Sobrato real estate uh, real estate holding companies in Santa Clara County. As of October 5th, there had been only one contribution received opposing Measure A. It was from Seema Kumar. It was for under $400. So there's a picture of the uh, the campaign finance. So, in a nutshell, a vote in favor of Measure A means the county would increase the sales tax for 5 years, and a no vote means the county would not increase the sales tax for 5 years. Good. I'm going to pause here for a second and see if there's anything fun in the questions. So, Q&A. No open questions. All right. Terrific. Then let me move on to Proposition 50. Oops. All right, Proposition 50 is statewide. Measure A, remember, was just Santa Clara County. Proposition 50 will authorize temporary changes to the congressional district maps in response to Texas's partisan redistricting. And this is the official title that shows up on your ballot. It's a legislative constitutional amendment, and because it proposes to amend the Constitution, it needs the approval of the voters, just a simple majority of us. So the question to you is, should California authorize the use of temporarily redrawn congressional district boundaries in a way that's likely to decrease the number of Republican representatives and increase the number of Democrats that California sends to the House of Representatives? And I will get into why it is written that way and what the various limitations are. But first, a little bit of background. The California Citizens Redistricting Commission was established by a couple of propositions that the California voters passed in 2008 and 2010. They modified the California Constitution to take district map drawing away from the legislature and instead give it to this independent commission with 14 members that include 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats, and 4 who are not affiliated with either of those two parties. And this 14-member commission every 10 years goes around the state, holds lots of hearings, gets lots of input from citizens, and has to follow strict nonpartisan rules in drawing the district maps for the state assembly, for the state senate, the state board of equalization, and for the US Congress. They draw new maps every 10 years, and they've done this twice so far, once in 2011 and once in 2021, following the census in each of the zero-numbered years. And the lines have to be redrawn because sometimes the state's number of representatives change. California lost 2 representatives in 2020 as a result of, I think, our population was essentially flat and a lot of other states had grown. And also they need to be redrawn to ensure roughly equal population within the districts. So our current maps were certified at the end of 2021 following the 2020 census, and they're intended for use all the way until 2030. We've already used them in the 2022 and 2024 elections. Other states generally don't do this. In most states, the legislature has primary control of the redistricting process for both state legislative districts and congressional districts. Only this list of states here, and I'll let you read those yourself, use independent commissions to draw congressional lines. Now, in 1965, the US Congress passed the Voting Rights Act, and that had a section in it, section number 2, that prohibited states from drawing districts that overtly discriminated against people on the basis of race. So imagine you had a population area with a racial minority in it. The Voting Rights Act prevented the state from coming in and breaking that into multiple districts, each reaching out to a non-minority area in order to deny that minority group any representation. So that's part of the Voting Rights Act. It makes it illegal to create legislative districts based on race. However, in 2019, and I'm getting to the part that's on your slide here, there was a US Supreme Court decision that ruled that the federal courts, while they won't tolerate a racial gerrymander, it's perfectly fine for a state to draw its lines based on purely partisan motivations. So a state can come in and rejigger its districts and create very crazy looking gerrymanders in order to maximize the number of representatives from one party or the other. So that's fairly new. So here's the current situation. In 2021, our current congressional boundaries were set. Earlier this year, the Texas state legislature approved new maps for the 2026 election with the express purpose of maximizing the number of Republican members of the House of Representatives from Texas. And you might remember this. This was suggested or prompted by President Trump, suggesting that Texas, that the Republican Party is quote unquote entitled to 5 more seats. The governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, then called a special session of the Texas state legislature in order to do that, and also for some other purposes. The Democratic representatives fled the state. Many of them went to Illinois in order to deny the special session a quorum so that it couldn't do its work. And they came back to the state after our governor, Gavin Newsom, committed that California would counterbalance any action taken by the Republicans in the Texas legislature. So they did that, and the Texas legislature did indeed approve new maps for their congressional districts, and those will be in use in Texas in 2026. The California legislature then met in its own special session called by our governor and passed new district maps that are expected to increase the number of Democratic representatives by 5 seats. So this is the theory here. None of this is guaranteed to happen. The elections in Texas and California next year might come out very differently than predicted. But this is the political strategy and the background behind why Proposition 50 is on your ballot. Now, the Texas legislature was allowed to act on its own. It did not need a vote of the people because that's how the Texas Constitution is written. In California, our Constitution requires us to use the Citizens Redistricting Commission maps that were approved in 2021. So in order for California to override those districts, a constitutional amendment is required, and that requires a vote of the people. And that's why this is on your ballot. And the people in Texas did not get the opportunity to vote on theirs. So what will Prop 50 do? Let's get to the nuts and bolts. It is a constitutional amendment. It temporarily adopts new congressional district maps, just Congress, not the state assembly, the state senate, or board of equalization. And those district maps will be used in 3 election cycles, next year, 28, and 30. After that, Proposition 50 will directs that the Citizens Redistricting Commission becomes reactivated after the 2030 census and continues doing its job just exactly as it has been doing. So Proposition 50 is temporary. It applies only to the next 3 congressional election cycles. Now, from a practical standpoint, for us here in Los Altos Hills, and Mountain View, this will not change our district boundaries at all. And I'll show you in a map in a couple of slides what I mean by that. And once again, this doesn't affect any districts other than the United States House of Representatives. So you can see here, the map of California's current districts is on the left, and the proposal is on the right. The current districts show, you can see the ones that are more red are more heavily Republican, according to the margin of victory in the previous election last year. And you can see that the northeast and southeast parts of the state are largely red, and also a large section of San Diego County on the Mexican border. The redrawn maps do the kind of thing that I mentioned earlier. They combined a Republican area with a larger or more populous Democratic area to produce a Democratic leaning district. And just As an example, at the very top of the state, you can see the upper right corner under the current districting is red because it includes almost exclusively agricultural and other rural counties that tend to vote more heavily Republican, notably Shasta County, which contains the city of Reading. Over on the right, you can see that the very northern part of the state has been converted to blue, and that's because the district has added all the way down the coast uh, to Marin County, which is populous and leans heavily Democratic. And that counterbalances the voters in much more conservative areas like Reading and Shasta County. So that's the strategy that's at play here. And once again, it's predicted, but not guaranteed, that this map will produce 5 additional blue seats or Democratic seats in the 2026 election. Here's a map of our area, and you can see our congressional district currently represented by Sam Liccardo. The red star is where we are in Mountain View and Los Altos Hills, and it's virtually unchanged. There are a few precincts in San Jose, way over on the right end of the district, that are being swapped with neighboring districts, but it will have absolutely no impact here in our area. So what'll it cost? Perhaps a few $1 million. The counties will have to, certain counties will have to input new coordinates and new data for the changes to the congressional district boundaries so that they can give people accurate ballots next year. So the top supporters of Prop 50 include the governor and one of our current U.S. senators, member of Congress from San Francisco, Nancy Pelosi, who was Speaker Emerita. One of the commissioners from the most recent Citizens Redistricting Commission, and then representatives from Planned Parenthood and the Sacramento City Teachers Association. The opponents on the right include a board member from United Latinos Action, the president of National Diversity Coalition, a board member for the Community Repower Movement, and then several former members of the Citizens Redistricting Commission. The first one would have been active in 2011. So what are the arguments? Why would you want to vote yes, and why would you want to vote no? Let's take a look. Supporters say that Prop 50 levels the playing field. Without this measure, California voters would be disadvantaged in Congress if other states shift their representation through new maps. It's a temporary safeguard. The legislature's maps expire when the commission resumes after the 2030 census. So this is a temporary fix to what supporters believe and hope might be a temporary situation. That there is support for national reform. The measure formally calls on Congress to require independent commissions nationwide, framing California's step as part of a broader push for fairness. And this is true. The language of Proposition 50 requires California to adopt a policy for nationwide independent commissions. And if critical mass is reached there, then there would be no need for Proposition 50, according to supporters. And finally, this is inexpensive. You might oppose Proposition 50 if you agree that it would weaken California's model for independent redistricting. Proposition 50's maps would not have to follow state rules that bind the commission, such as limits on considering partisan data or protecting communities of interest, and I might add also geographic compactness. Proposition 50 could set off a dangerous arms race in redistricting, normalizing mid-decade partisan redraws. Prop 50 confuses voters. It complicates the redistricting process by layering a temporary legislative map on top of the existing commission system. And finally, it sets a dangerous precedent. Future California legislatures may be more likely to attempt similar independent commission overrides. So the idea here is similar to what we saw with the argument against Measure A. Once you've done it once, the voters become habituated to overriding or, in the case of Measure A, continuing attacks, and it becomes much easier. So as of October 5th, there had been over $200 million spent in aggregate support and opposition. And I know that this number has gone up significantly, even just in the last 9 days. But as of October 5th, the major donors included something known as HMP for Prop 50. And I apologize for not knowing what HMP stands for. There is a committee, Yes on 50, another committee, Fund for Policy Reform, the MoveOn.org Political Action Committee has contributed nearly $7 million, and so on. Opposing Prop 50 is the No on 50 Congressional Leadership Fund, which I believe is a national organization. Charles Munger, who is very active politically in California, Kevin McCarthy, the former Speaker of the House, Thomas Siebel, who has also been politically active, and the Ken Calvert for Congress campaign. So you can see this is a very high budget, high stakes ballot proposition. And once again, I encourage you to visit the state's website to get the latest figures if you're interested in how much money is pouring into the campaign. But in a nutshell, a yes vote means that we would use new legislatively drawn congressional district maps for the next 3 election cycles starting next year. And after that, the Citizens Redistricting Commission would resume its work. A no vote means that California will continue to use the current congressional district maps that were drawn by the Citizens Redistricting Commission 4 years ago, all the way through to the 2030 elections. And as with the yes side, the Redistricting Commission would draw new maps after the 2030 census. And that wraps up my my introduction to those 2 ballot measures. Once again, you are welcome to fill out your ballot and send it in or drop it off starting as soon as you receive it. Do not forget to sign the back of the envelope and put on your address. If you haven't registered, the last day to register online is October 20th. You can register after that by going in person to a vote center, and you will submit a provisional ballot. And assuming that your registration is valid, your vote will be counted. And then November 4th, for those of you who like to vote in person, the polls will be open from 7 in the morning till 8 at night. And just a reminder that democracy is not a spectator sport. We all have a lot of fun watching videos and reading about things, but this is your chance to influence the state of affairs in this country directly. So please don't hold back. Help us decide what we're going to do. And if this kind of information and civic engagement is something that appeals to you, please consider joining your local League of Women Voters. And I think that's all I've got to say. So thank you very much for your kind attention and good luck in voting this year. Bye now.